I think we consider all of this a gift. And if you're given the opportunity to do creative work at a really high level and know people will look at it, you don't want to half-ass it.
They're dealing with different themes, but it still is this kind of supernatural element and how it messes with humanity and how we can tell really human stories through. With genies, it was about, want and then and desire, and with the Lucky Devils, it's about temptation.
It's been about trying to figure out what element of the human condition we want to focus on, figure out a little supernatural beastie that could help us, serve as a lens for us to explore it, and then go from there. And genies worked incredibly well with wishes and desire. Devils are working incredibly well with temptation. Hi there, my name is Charles Soule. I'm here with
Ryan Browne.
That's right, Ryan Browne. We are here talking about our new book, The Lucky Devils, on genuine Chit-Chat.
And here we are, my friends, with another very special episode. I am joined today with Charles Soule and Ryan Browne. They are the creative team behind 8 Billion Genies, behind Curse Words, and also behind the upcoming Lucky Devils miniseries. So we're going to be talking about all those kinds of things, which I'm very excited to talk about. But a very quick little icebreakery question. Given that you're both so busy and you have so many roles, I mean, Soule, you're a non-practicing attorney as well as being a writer, comic book writer. There's obviously the Curse Words concept album as well, and then on top of that you're also a Lucasfilm creative consultant. So, and I know obviously, Ryan, not to downplay you, you're also super busy. I mean, one would argue, not to slight on Soule, but one would argue that drawing comics and things may take a lot longer than writing. I'm not here to start that feud up, but how do you both unwind, aside from chatting with each other and driving around vans? How do you each unwind when you're outside of your creative passions? I'll come to you first, Ryan.
Recently has been playing pinball.
Oh, very nice.
Which is something that I was never any good at and never that interested in. And then they opened a pinball bar a couple blocks from my house, and so that's what I do. But usually it's with my children. Really, the answer is I take care of my kids. So
very nice. Oh, I was going to say, is it big dad energy getting into pinball? Because I remember my dad just loved pinball. So now whenever I play, I'm like, am I growing up? Am I an adult now? So I love that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing because it's a bar, but it also allows children until 8 p.m. So my kids, my 3 and 5-year-old are getting trained in the ways of pinball. So it's quite fun.
And they get hammered. I mean, they can drink a lot by 8 p.m.
Oh, absolutely, man.
It is wild to see.
The question is, do you call them pinball wizards or do you call them pinball wazards? That'd be that's the version. Yeah. That's it.
They're, I don't know, pinball Padawans. There you go, Charles. How do you like that?
That's Star Wars.
Making me very happy.
Relevant to my interests, right?
Yeah, I mean, look behind me. I've got all the High Republic stuff and plenty of comics and stuff. So, Charles, how do you unwind outside your many creative projects?
Well, I go for runs. I'm actually going to go for a run after we finish talking today. That's why I'm wearing this incredible neon hoodie. That will mean I probably won't get pancaked by a truck. And what'd be funny is if I did get pancaked by a truck after saying it. That would be really wild. Funny. Wouldn't that be wild?
It would be horrible for me because I'd lose one of my favorite writers. But also, last interview of Charles Soule ever.
That would send this channel through the roof. Anyway, so I run. That's a big mental health thing for me. Like every once in a while, I'll be traveling, or I'll get or the weather will be too terrible. I always run outside, or I'll get injured, which doesn't happen very often, thankfully. But there'll be times when I can't run, and I go bananas. Like it is not. It is not great. So I run. And then the other thing that I do a lot is I go to the movies. I go to the cinema, and sometimes I go with other people. Often I just go by myself, and I sit and I watch a movie for 2 hours. And that is a very, very good way to unwind because you can't be on your phone. You can't be working. You have to be doing something else. And I think that running is kind of the same thing. Like, as much as I might want to be writing while I'm running, I literally physically can't do it. So, which is an interesting observation because it seems like if I could be writing, I probably would be writing. So in order to actually relax, I have to pull myself away completely.
Yeah, but you write in your head while you run. You come up with ideas, and then sometimes I call you while you're running, and you talk to me while you're running.
Yeah, I do. Look, yes, I think that I consider a healthy form, though, of doing it as opposed to just being locked into the keyboard. You can, there's the subconscious is activated in a different way. I come up with ideas when I'm in the movie, when I'm like, oh, this. If the movie is sufficiently bad, I can dissociate from it and work on whatever story I'm working on while the image is unspooled in front of me. So
Learn what not to do. I mean, not that you need to take any more lessons. I mean, you're doing quite well for yourself, it seems. So we'll delve into Lucky Devils. So in this one, so we've got obviously another collaboration with you two. Now, I note that Charles, your three novels, Oracle Year, Anyone, and Endless Vessel, you've nicknamed the Questions trilogy. Now, I wondered if off that, if the works with Ryan, if you two have come up with, if this is only going to be a trilogy, fingers crossed there's going to be more. But I noticed that with the limited amount I read of Curse Words, as well as all of 8 Billion Genies, there are certainly common threads that get pulled. I'll ask a little bit about the human condition a little bit later on, but I know that certain threads get pulled, and in Lucky Devils, it seems like similar things are happening while still being unique. So I didn't know if the two of you have thought if these collections of this collaboration, if you've got a name for it like you do with Charles's novels, or it's just what it is right now.
I mean, we do, Ryan. At least we talk about it internally. So
you don't have to reveal it if it's a secret and there's going to be some big reveal somewhere.
I mean, I tongue in cheek referred to it as the little dudes fucking with humanity trilogy. It doesn't. I don't know if it'll be a trilogy, but it doesn't, like, curse words is kind of its own thing. But a lot of references to curse words bleed into 8 Billion Genies and the Lucky Devil. So they are, in some sort of shared spiritual universe. But definitely with 8 Billion Genies and the Lucky Devils, we're doing a similar formatting, we're coming up with a good time structure and the story structure that is going to be very beginning, middle, end, versus Curse Words was a lot of world building and just kind of exploring. Genies and the Lucky Devils will be 9 issues. Genies was 8 issues, but they were a lot of oversized, so it was actually like 10 issues worth of content. And then Lucky Devils will be 9 issues, and so they're dealing with different themes, but it still is this kind of supernatural element and how it messes with humanity and how we can tell really human stories through. With Genies, it was about, want and then and desire, and with the Lucky Devils, it's about temptation and the literal devil on your shoulder and how they affect your decisions in life. So they're it's not a sequel to 8 Billion Genies, but it's exploring a different idea in a similar kind of way.
And just jumping off that, I was going to say quickly, with 8 Billion Genies obviously being 8 issues, Lucky Devils 9, and then Curse Words being 28 plus epilogue, was that a concerted decision after Curse Words? I recall, Ryan, you saying in the past that your art style improved a lot with 8 Billion because you had a bit more time to do it, whereas Curse Words, because you were doing it for essentially 3 years, to quote yourself, it was kind of like, you weren't getting lazy with the artwork, but because a lot of the same characters were happening, it was not necessarily challenging you in the same way. Was that a factor of the shortened miniseries, or was it just one idea is quite good to do one series, and then if you want to do more, you can? I don't know if either of you have a comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, I really like doing a long format thing because there's so much heavy lifting in the initial construction of an idea and a look for a book. And with Curse Words, that was you can see my art getting more and more simple, and the lines getting clumsier and thicker, and the background's getting less detailed because of just the schedule. It was literally just doing a monthly book like that. That's what I had to do. And so with 8 Billion Genies, it wasn't a deliberate decision to spend more time on the art, but I've just become a better artist since then, and I'm worse at not phoning in, but getting it done quickly. So, like with the Lucky Devils is even more labor intensive than 8 Billion Genies. So be nice to me when there are issue delays. Because I'm also coloring it. And Curse Words I did a final pass on the colors after we had several different colors on that book. But with Genies and Lucky Devils, I have an assistant working with colors, but I'm still doing about 50% of it. And so it's I don't know. I'm just gonna craft it and make it good, and eventually everyone will forget that every issue is late.
I think that the last thing you said is really the truth of it. You know, like what's happened to us and our careers since Curse Words has been pretty significant, both in terms of, you know, like what we're doing outside of the work we do together, but also um, the way people perceive a book from us. And so we I think we both feel that it is incredibly important that we bring our like A++ game to any story that we're going to tell together, because that's what people have come to expect. Like when, you know, we have plans that I don't know if we're ever actually going to do it, but we have plans for kind of like, you know, sillier things that are kind of more fun, that aren't quite as, not that this isn't fun, but like a different type of creative process that's maybe faster and a little snappier, and we just do like things to make each other laugh. Which would be great. But for these big sort of flagships, which 8 Billion Genies was one, and certainly Devils is another. I think we expect there to be a level of attention on it that we just want to reflect that in the work that we put in, because it's incredibly difficult to gain a foothold in comics at all. It's very difficult to have a paying career in comics, and then you add on top of that having a career in comics where you get to do creator-owned work as your primary job, and then adding on to that is the additional difficulty of having a creator-owned comics career that you actually can like make a pretty decent living off of. Like you're doing kind of well with it, and that's where Ryan and I have found ourselves in terms of the audience that seems to exist for our work when we work on projects together. And so now it's no pressure, right? I mean, the first issue's out, you've seen it, but like I think we consider all of this a gift. And if you're given the opportunity to do creative work at a really high level and know people will look at it, you don't want to half-ass it. You know, like we're both, I think we both enjoy working really hard when we know that people are going to be looking at it and talking to us about it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I want to ask as well with you, Charles, what about Ryan makes him such a good collaborator, excluding his art style? Now, I know in the past you've mentioned that you are much more of an infrastructure guy. And I think that comes out when you've worked in certain IPs. Obviously, you've got She-Hulk and Daredevil, as well as your sort of early days in the big two of Swamp Thing and etc. But Star Wars is really, for me, what put you on the map. I think a lot of my friends say it's Daredevil. But with those existing IPs, you've got groundwork. You've kind of, especially with something like Star Wars, where you've already got, in the new canon, of course, you've got this indisputable storyline that cannot be changed, and then you have to add to things. And one thing about your Vader run which is my favorite comic run of all time, is that especially issue 25 and issue 5, I mean, the Force Vision stuff, literally still waiting for someone else to hit those heights on the screen or otherwise. But I did wonder if the passion and success that you've both found together is maybe a symptom of you loving to be an infrastructure kind of guy. And I know that Ryan as well, it was kind of your idea, 8 Billion Genies. You were kind of the spark of this. So I wondered if, for starting with you, Charles, like, how is it working with Ryan and excluding the art style? What really about him has made you be able to work so well together over the time with Image Comics?
I mean, I think the number one thing that I would cite is that we both enjoy wearing pastel colored hoodies.
I didn't get the memo, I'm afraid.
it is impossible to overstate how wonderful that part of the collaboration is. Ryan and I, what I just did is actually a pretty good example of why it's so much fun to work with Ryan, because we like to make each other laugh. And that has been the through line from the beginning. Our sense of humors are like the Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap in the kinds of things that we find funny, but he approaches it this way and I approach it that way, which means we can constantly, I don't know, just like come out of left field with things that make the other person, likes or laughs. We can, like, Ryan is a big sports person. You can see he's got a baseball hat on. You can see that I do not have a baseball hat on. So that is something in which we differ. But it also means, I don't know, like there's things, we're not the same, but there's a lot that we both like. And for whatever reason, our way of looking at the world and our senses of humor and the way we approach creativity and the things we value in creativity seem to align really well. Like this is looping back to something that we were just talking about a minute ago, but like Ryan and I will work our asses off, like in a way that that not everybody does, I think. Not, which is not to slight any creative person at all, but like I think that's a commonality. Like we can rely on each other to do the job at, like to do it at a job that's sort of more a level that's maybe more intense than we should almost. But that's like you don't find that all the time in your creative partnerships, and so that I think is a big deal. And then reiterating something that you mentioned, like I do things creatively within the creative partnership that Ryan doesn't, and vice versa. And so, and that's not just the writing and drawing sort of dichotomy. It's that I really do like building in the structure and the framework beneath the story sort of that's being told. And so 8 Billion Genies, all of those rules about the way Genies works, the structure of the extending time with each issue, the formatting, all of that stuff was something I just love building out. Devils has a lot of that same stuff in it too. Ryan, I'm going to speak for you, but I feel like you're more of like a freewheeling, whatever, come what may kind of dude. You like to sort of going hog wild. And so the trick for us, the balance, is finding a place where that framework can go in, and that lets Ryan also do sort of whatever he wants. And those two things in combination, I think, make a really fun, like just tone, that thing that we do that other people don't do quite the same way. And that's why people keep coming back to our work.
And same question to you, Ryan, but reversed. And you can say as well, you don't like working with Charles because he always makes you draw stadiums. Like you can say that, and we can just move straight on.
True.
You haven't done your homework.
True. There isn't one in the Lucky Devils so far. Oh man, good. Knock on wood.
Oh,
need to address that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
there's a tent
I think
in issue 3.
that Charles is the planner and I'm the improviser. And so frequently I feel like a moron. But I also like to, make things up and wing it and figure it out. And Charles likes to build structures, and so Charles is the architect of the house, and then I put a bunch of video games in it. I don't know, like
you put the cool movie posters up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, and then we've both changed a lot in the time that we've known each other. And I think we've rubbed off on each other quite a bit. Which is great, but still, like who we are, our sensibilities, complement in really interesting, sometimes strange ways, which I really like, because I feel like if you read either of our works separately, you can see what the other person brings to the equation when we work together. And I also think that we put out comics that aren't like anyone else's comics. Whether you like them or not, you can say, hey, that's definitely something that doesn't feel like all the other stuff on the stands. And that's I mean, creatively, that's what I've always wanted to do. It's not just retread and not, put out, comics that can be simplified to this meets that, kind of thing. And so, like it's great because I have a lot of weaknesses as a creative person, and Charles fills in most of those. So, like that's great. So like he does the things that I'm like it's hard for me to think about, and then I can just kind of play on top and just find meaning within the silliness is usually what I try to do.
I mean, that's perfect. I mean, I was trying to think of what, back to my earlier question of like, aside from little dudes fucking with humans, what the sort of term could be for the collection. All I keep thinking, and this is terrible, is Brown Souls, which sounds like some horrendous, like almost parody comic or something. So I maybe pending, maybe at some point I'll email if I can think of anything.
It's funny that you should mention that, because you remember I mentioned that we want to do like silly stories at some point in between these hyper intense ones that we've been doing. There's we have like a list of them at this point. Like they'd all be short, 20 pages, 40 pages, whatever. And we would call them the Brown Soul Goofs.
Wow.
And so you were ahead of the curve on that one. You were part of the zeitgeist. You didn't even know it. And man, I hope we get a minute to like take a year and just be like, let's just do those, like, I don't know. It's very cool to be having high profile books come out through Image Comics, which is it's incredible. The dream, but it also, I don't know, there's something fun to writing a book about. Like one of them's called The Ghost and the GoBot. Like it's that kind of thing. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see.
I'm just gonna start drawing that one. Forget the Lucky Devils. I'm gonna
No, no, Ryan,
taking a
no, I
stand
don't.
as Upset
I
Image
would prefer
Comics.
if you did not
yeah.
did not do that.
Well, yeah, whenever you guys get round to doing that, be it in 1 or 20 years, depending how busy you both are, then the door is always open to come here. You know, we love talking indie comics on this channel. I mean, this channel is going to be my show, Genuine Chit Chat, and also Comics in Motion, which is a big indie comics lover of audience there. So I want to talk a little bit. So continuing with the thread of your collaboration is 8 Billion Genies. Now, 8 Billion Genies it's a simple premise, but it has massive implications. And I think that's one of the many facets of your collaborations that work so well. And the first, when I finished 8 Billion Genies, one thing I really thought about was Alan Moore's Miracle Man, which the very start of it is just, oh, it's what if superheroes were real, in essence, kind of. What if Superman wasn't as perfect as you think? And then by the end of it, you're like, there's a whole new world, there's a whole new order, all these kinds of things. So linking in with that kind of line of thinking, the final issue, which I won't spoil of 8 Billion Genies because it's phenomenal and anyone listening needs to go check them out, but the final issue is very philosophical. So I wondered if either of you really learn anything about yourselves, either throughout that run or when creating that final issue. Be it, I know you're both heavily involved in the artwork process. Obviously, Ryan, you are actually doing it, but I know that Charles is involved a lot of the time. So I'll come to you first, Ryan. How did you find, if at all, writing 8 Billion Genies, especially the philosophical side, like drawing that? Did you learn anything about yourself while doing that from that perspective?
In terms of, it was a real confidence booster to have a series that I don't know, kind of went viral, right? Like people were talking about it and were very excited about it. And when we announced the movie deal that we had in place was after issue 3 came out, and so it was the first time that I had really had made something that was like universally successful. I'm used to making things that are like cultish and the people that like them love them, but it's not like, like I don't have extended family members that seek it out to read it, so it was an interesting experience to work on a book that I knew people really thought we were doing something special. Oh, and I still had to make like the second half of it. And so that was a lot of pressure, and it ends up being a very stressful experience. But I feel like we just continued to, like, we talked about it being like a high wire act the whole way through, and it was just like I don't think that there's a single moment of that book that I'm not proud of, and so it was a lot of performing under pressure that I'm kind of shocked I was able to pull off. So it gave me I learned a lot about myself just through the creation of it, which I guess isn't totally your question, but it was just the process. It was just the process of, if you were making a movie and in like you had the first act done and then everybody loved it, and then you had to finish making the movie, like, it's that kind of thing. So, uh, you know, it was quite an experience. But in terms of like, um, you know, it was a wish, right? My wish was to make a comic book that was very successful and to, get into the movie scene, and like we had so much interest there, and so it was pretty much all the career fulfillment stuff that I had wanted to ever have happened on that book. So, now you have the next step, which is the new book, and whether you can, that's a new type of pressure, to follow suit and reinvent the world and reinvent, something that connects with people, like the feeling that everyone loved the genie design so much. And it's like, well, I don't know how I did that. Like I worked on it. We talked about it. I worked on it again. You know, and then it became a thing that people really, really liked. And so like, well, how can I do that again? So,
That's amazing.
It's an interesting learning experience through that lens, I guess.
I mean, what sounds of things is 8 Billion Genies is actually an autobiography of your life, and you got the last wish, and it was to
Yeah.
write a successful comic thing. Amazing. Sorry, to you,
Yeah.
Charles. So, same sort of question to you. And again, I loved your answer, Ryan, but most of my questions answer however you see fit, however vague or tangentially you answer them. There's no wrong answers here. So yeah,
Yeah.
same to you, Soul. What did you learn, really?
I mean, I it felt like, looking back on it now, it's still relatively fresh, right? The book, the book's hardcover collection, which is where many people found it but didn't find it in the single issues, came out in what, summer of 23, Ryan. So about a year ago. And the number of people who, it's the same thing that Ryan described. Like, people found this work, even though I've been very lucky to work in very popular franchises, licensed work. Some of my creator-owned work has been, Star Wars, of course, but also Marvel Comics. Some of my creator-owned work is very well received and popular. Undiscovered Country, Letter 44. Like, so some elements of this weren't weren't completely novel to me, but the thing that I remember about Genies was, particularly the end, was feeling this immense responsibility to get it right, to make it feel fresh, to avoid cliche, to give people something that they didn't necessarily know they wanted. And there were elements of the final issue that were not in my initial outline. Like, I found some of that stuff as I was doing it. I mean, we don't have to get into, like, I don't love, like, deconstructing how every decision was made, because I want it to feel like it was effortless. But there are significant elements of issue 8 that we found on the fly, because things we tried first did not work. And it was coming down to literally the last possible, 20 minutes for us to turn the issue in. We were making substantial changes. But by that point, we had, like, that, I think of that time as very exhilarating. Like, Ryan, you and I were both running at like a perfectly tuned Ferrari engine, cranked up to 180 miles per hour, just like racing along the highway to get it done. And all elements of our team, because we do a lot of it are just the two of us between the writing and the art. But we also have a fantastic letterer who's been working with us since Kurtzlord, named Chris Crank. As Ryan mentioned, he's been working with a color assistant named Kevin Knipstein, who's awesome. But there's, obviously all of Image Comics was behind us at that point. And so it is kind of us, but it's also, there's the people that we work with, and everybody on the team was really just in sync to try to land the plane and bring it all home. And when we did, I felt as confident about what we had done as I have ever felt about a creative piece of work in my life. Like, I didn't need to read reviews. I didn't need to talk to people about it. I just knew we did it. It was right. It was essentially as close to a perfect comic as I think Ryan and I are going to make, are those 8 issues of Genies. Doesn't mean we're not going to do good on Devils. I'm sure we will make another perfect comic, but I just knew that we had nailed it. And that was an incredibly good feeling. And it's so now, as we're doing Devils, it's kind of, we're still really at the beginning, and we will find out later today how the order numbers were for the first issue, which is a big milestone in the creation of a creator-owned book. And we have some hints, we have some suggestions that it's gone pretty well, but we don't know for sure. And really, the first issue is only one of 9 hurdles we have to get over, because we have to then keep it going for issue 2. People are really gonna decide whether or not they want to get this book on an ongoing basis after they read issue 2 and say, oh, okay, this is a flavor of adventure I want to see all the way through the end. So I don't know, like, it's exhilarating to be back on the high wire, but it definitely feels like we're back on a high wire again. It does not feel safe. It does not feel easy. It feels just as difficult as any comic is. And, like, because of the way Ryan and I work, I can't really write ahead. Like, I usually write one script ahead of whatever Ryan's drawing, because I need to see what he's done in the issue on the page to know what I'm going to do moving forward, and how characters are acting and how they're changing and how they're moving. So we're literally, like, there's that analogy of building the railroad track right in front of the train as it's coming up the track. That's what we're doing, and that's what we always do. and it's awesome. It's super fun, but holy shit, sometimes it's you wake up in the middle of the night and be like, whoa, okay, here we go, here we
You're
go.
giving me such anxiety.
You already
Fret
have
not.
such this is nothing new.
Well,
Come
Fred,
on.
Yeah.
you've
course.
still got like 20 minutes or so, at least, of this conversation before
All
you
right.
have to consider that. So you can have a breathe. You can have a sit back and relax, Ryan. Don't fret.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to ask. I mean, there's hundreds of questions I could ask each of you, but we have only got limited time. I want to ask you, Charles, linking in with what you were just speaking about. Obviously, you're saying essentially you've got the pressure. And things are difficult, really, in the right ways, I think. And there's a quote from you, which is, you said, everything I've ever written is a sense of when things get hard, you keep going. I just wondered if you could just elaborate a little bit on that, because I thought that was really cool. And I think you can really feel that in a lot of your works and clearly with your work ethic. So elaborate as much or as little as you'd like on that.
I mean, I think difficulty is the way that you change, right? It's a crucible, like it's a way that you become something new. And every story that I tell, and I think every drawing that Ryan draws is something that is incorporated into the next thing I write or Ryan draws or whatever. And there is no wasted idea, there's no wasted effort, there is no wasted struggle. Everything that you do builds and is somehow used, whether literally, directly, or not, in the next thing that you do. And I guess in my head, when I like visualize it, I think of life as you're constantly like becoming, hopefully, this increasingly optimized creature to do the things that you've been trying to do since you were less good at it. You ideally are going to get better and better and better at the things that you love to do until your body fails you and whatever. But like, this is exciting. This is don't be anxious,
great.
Ryan.
I'm loving this.
Yeah, but really, so like if things are hard, it just means you're getting better. It just means that the next thing that you do is you're learning more from all the extra effort and power you have to put into getting over whatever that creative or life hump, whatever it might be. The next thing you do, you're just going to be like even better. It's training essentially. So if you're practicing. So I think the only way that doesn't happen is if you stop, if you abandon things, if you give up. And I'm not the first person to come up with these ideas. Rocky Balboa said some variation on these ideas. He did, Ryan, in the film Rocky Balboa, starring Rocky Balboa.
I saw that at the cinema.
His mouth must have been full of hard-boiled eggs. I couldn't hear him.
Hit or something. It's about how hard you stand up. I think that's it. It's about how hard you stand up. That's what Rocky Balboa says, and that's what I believe.
Oh man, stand hard.
Stand hard. Oh yeah, that's the new motto of the company. Silent E Productions LLC. The old motto of the company, which I really like, and we need to put on a T-shirt, is the E is silent, but the work speaks for itself. I think that's very smooth. But now that's abandoned for just stand hard.
Stand
you
hard.
think you can make up a cool logo for that, Ryan?
No.
Now you have to do it by the end of this
I have
podcast.
too much
Quick,
stuff to
come on,
do.
15 minutes. Let's go. Well, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I want to ask a little bit about the Curse Words concept album, because I know that you yourself, Charles, you are you often cite that you are a musician. You've always had a passion for music as well as your multitude of other passions. So I wondered, what about Curse Words made you want to release a concept album? Was it the content of the comic run itself? Was it Ryan was your muse and your inspiration? Was it just an excuse really to do something a little bit different outside of your comfort zone after 15 odd years of being a comic writer and then the last sort of 5-10 years a novelist? What made you just decide to do the concept album, really?
I would be interested to hear how Ryan would answer that question about why I did it.
Go on then, Ryan. You're the muse.
He did it because he wanted a pressure from all around that was going to motivate him to write and record an entire album. He found a way to make a commitment to our fan base that he was going to do this because it's something he always wanted to do. And I think that when you do that, then it bumps it up the to-do list. So I think that is the main reason why this started. we did build an incredibly rich world with very strange things in it. So we, you know, we had a pretty good base for him to pull ideas from, for the concept album. But I know that this was important to him to do this at some point in his life, was to write and record an album. And so uh, you know, putting both of our asses on the line with this commitment, even though I didn't
Mhm.
do anything, I think was a pretty strong and good motivator. And also, you had some. It helps to have a few built-in sales, right? Like if you did an 8 Billion Genies concept album, you'd have some, you'd know that some of the Genie fans would buy it, even if it was terrible. So,
Yeah. I think that's right. I love music. I love playing music, and like I think it's something about me that I don't get to serve as much as I would like to. And um, I got to sing. I love singing. Like there's a lot of things. Music was the first really big thing I was serious about creatively. And because I went into law school and became a lawyer, I couldn't really be in bands anymore. And so it was just a huge hole, something I had lost in my life. And I wanted the reason to get all my skills back, get all my chops back, and show to myself that I could still do it. Um, and and it's just fun. I don't know if you've ever made a concept album, but it is an extremely fun endeavor. Uh, so yeah, I'm really glad I did. I'm really glad it's out there, and I could see doing an 8 Billion Genies one. It just I my the thing I've explained to or the deal I've made with my family basically is if Genies is a film, if that film is greenlit and goes, then I will make a record. Which because it's a lot because they have to listen to the demos. Ryan, here's like the shitty versions I recorded to my phone. Like anyone around me has to endure quite a bit when I make a record. But
yeah, he sends me phone demos at like, you know, 8 o'clock at night when I'm trying to do bedtime with my
mhm.
children. And then he sends me texts like, "What'd you think of it?" I'm like, I'm doing things right now.
Doesn't
Give me a
matter.
little
Nothing else matters. And my crappy suck into my phone sketch of Team Margaret or whatever the song is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's incredible. What an answer. So I want to, as we are, as we're getting closer to the 11th hour, I want to ask about, now answer this as in-depth or as briefly as desired. I'll come to you first, Ryan, which is the human condition. Now that's something that I said earlier. I see that as, it's quite a broad term, but I see that as something which these kinds of, your collaborations really make you ask questions about what it is to be human, or really what are these external forces, what pressure is being put on humans, what will that make them do? So the term human condition, as broad and vague as it is, how would you define that in or outside of your works? Just when someone says human condition to you, how do you think about that, and how does that get into your works, Ryan?
I mean, I guess I think about it as in terms of how it affects me. The worries I have, the pressures I have, the stresses I have, the anxieties I have. That is a big part of the human condition. Um, to me, like I don't know. I have so many things that I want to do in life, just like most people. And the older I get, the more I have an inability to not be working on these things I want to do. And so like the internal pressure and anxiety of like having to go constantly be creating and making new ideas, and that is such like a driving force for me, um, that I am very envious of the people that can just play, video games for 10 hours a day. Like I think
Same.
but then I'm like, well, I wouldn't want to do that, but also, wouldn't that be awesome?
Well, it'll be easier, I think. I'm not sure it'll be as good and
Yeah,
as satiating, but it would be
yeah,
definitely easier.
yeah. I mean, and I mean, everything in our lives is just, it's based on the fact that we only have so much time, right? And like so much time to be alive, so much time to create, so much time to be with family and all of that stuff. And so um, it's a really interesting thing to get to do my dream job and then, get that feeling of like, oh, it's definitely still a job. Like it's definitely comes with all the stress and anxiety of, working in a factory or, whatever. So yeah, so just, also the older I get, the more I'm trying to like be in the moment and be present. You know, and I think that is a big thing that I think about a lot. Uh, I think, with 8 Billion Genies, it was people would always ask us, what would we wish for? What would we wish for? Which was fun to think about. But then that question leads to thinking about just so many conditions of your life and what makes you happy and what makes you feel safe and fulfilled. And then like this new one that like temptation is not a big driver for me. And that but I like telling the story about it, right? Like like I'm a very focused individual for like taking care of the people around me and trying to make art that means something for someone. I'm not a person that just wants to go to Vegas and hang out with strippers and like eat hot dogs all day. Like I don't know. Like temptation is not really a driving factor for me. But on Genies, like to keep want, like of course, like that's so I think over the course of working on Genies and getting the thing I always wanted, a successful comic, um, and financial stability, has helped me to not be thinking down the road constantly and be more present, I think.
That's beautiful, amazing. And Charles, yeah, same to you. What does the human condition mean to you, really?
To me, the human condition is universality, right? It's the stuff that that you could say that every human person experiences on some level. And so, and whether it's a driver or not, it's the things that we experience. So desire, everybody has things they wish for, things they want that they don't have, things they need. Everybody's been hungry, everybody's been thirsty, everybody's been tired. Like those to me are part of the human condition. In this case, temptation. Like I think it is fair to say that universally every human has known the right thing to do and has wanted to do the wrong thing instead, uh, either on a large scale or a small scale, whether for their personal benefit or their personal pleasure, just because they kind of have some perverse like devil on their shoulder whispering something in their ear. I mean, there's a the imp of the perverse, right? Like the thing where you're just like, this makes no fucking sense. Why would I ever do this crazy thing? But you kind of want to. And that's where does that impulse come from? So, and there are others. I think that there is a desire for connection with other human beings. I think that is very much part of the human condition. You could call that a need for love, need for companionship. I think there's not always the case, but a sense of purpose or wanting a sense of purpose is part of the human condition. And then there's negative parts of the human condition. Temptation is one, but there's also resentment, there's anger, there's fear. I'm just going to start quoting Yoda's line from Phantom Menace at this point. But pain, suffering, it's all real. So I think when you pull back, you say that every human being on some level experiences this thing. That's part of the human condition. And then for us as storytellers, it's been about trying to figure out what element of the human condition we want to focus on, figure out a little supernatural beastie that could help us, serve as a lens for us to explore it, and then go from there. And Genie's worked incredibly well with wishes and desire. Devils are working incredibly well with temptation. We actually haven't even talked about the book that much. I mean, you got the first issue, you've seen it?
I did. Yeah, I've read the entirety of it. Yeah, I do apologize. I was like, it was just, I also recently read 8 Billion, and so yeah. I was like, I was trying to, with my listeners, I know that you're going to do a lot of press, and I know that you're going to be answering a lot of the exact same questions over and over and over again. And I try my best, as you may be able to tell, is to listen to loads of podcasts for people and specifically ask questions that other people haven't necessarily asked.
That's a beautiful practice. I think that's wonderful.
I'm sorry that I didn't ask about Lucky G's, but yeah, say as much as you want about
I mean,
Lucky Devils, please.
what the premise of the book is two people.
Are we
who
the bad guys? Is the quote I remember, sorry, from last time we said, is the question of are we the bad guys the meme that you saw, which is like, are we actually bad or not? And what makes someone
I mean,
bad or good?
there's so like the development process for this book was enormous in terms of me thinking of ideas, discarding ideas. What am I actually going to say about this? How am I going to do it? Before Ryan drew anything. I mean, he drew one little sketch of like a stick figure with a devil crawling on him. And that was the image that I then took and built all this framework and tried to figure out how we're going to talk about this. And the premise of the story has two like normal human beings who meet the devils that have been sitting on their shoulders since the day that they were born. The devils that have been trying to corrupt them, trying to turn them bad, trying to convince them to do bad things since they were infants. And those devils are like, they're named Collar and Rake in the story. And Collar and Rake say to these two humans, we're sick of this gig. Like, you never do anything all that bad. And like, it's kind of sucks for us. It kind of sucks for you. So instead, let's all just hang out. Let's just be friends. Let's just see what happens. And that is the seed of it. And it's a very like gremlins-y kind of thing. Like the devils are these little small beasties that run around and do crazy things and everybody has adventures, and it's really fun. But then without the acquiescence of the humans, the devils are operating on them to make their lives more impressive and make them rise in the hierarchy of human society. And as that happens, temptation starts to adhere to them when they realize, consciously or unconsciously, that they kind of don't have to be as good anymore as they rise higher in society, because society is more permissive to people who have more power and influence to let them do bad things and kind of let them get away with it. And so there's this temptation to just be worse that seems to also be part of the human condition. And it's really, it's fun. That's the sort of the moral thematic framework that we're playing with. But there's also like the devils are awesome. They're super cool. Ryan's designs are incredible. It's a really, I mean, the this meets that of it is like Gremlins meets Good Omens, which is, I know we don't really like saying it's this meets that, but it is kind of that, it's really, really a fun book that also has these ideas at its core.
I think the duality is quite a common thread, at least in this, which is because you've got the two devils who are obviously, they seemingly are together, or at least they have a pre-existing
they're a couple. That's what I thought. They make out. They do it.
I was pretty sure, but I was like, with devils, I was like, they kind of would probably do that with anyone, but that's what the assumption I got when I read it, is that the two devils are couples, and they, again, Ryan, they look very individual. You can immediately see the difference between the two, and the same with the humans as well. But is it the duality is potentially a theme here? Because it's like these two people who don't want to be bad, but they're going, okay, we'll take power, that's fine, but let's not do anything bad. Whereas the devils are kind of like, yeah, maybe we're not going to go through that. So it's kind of like, again, the human condition mixed with there's twos and twos. I didn't know if that was a factor in anything in either Ryan's drawings or the work itself. Floor to both of you, or either.
Go for it, Ryan. What's going on with duality?
Duality.
Not the Slipknot song, as much as I enjoy that.
I think of it more in terms of for on Genies and on this, where I'm building contrast between two worlds, right? But with Genies, we didn't see the Genies world, but we saw what they brought into our world, like the stuff that they would invent, and them, and the difference between them, the way they look and the way the people look. They're presenting as friendly, but actually causing mass chaos in the world. Is kind of a fun thing. And then with the Lucky Devils, it's different because you can't see them. Like they are the devil on your shoulder, so they are manipulating you. And so it's this thing where you think that you have free will, and you are making the decisions, but your decisions are being influenced by a thing that you can't see. That's whispering bad things into your ears, bad ideas, poking you, in the nose or whatever to kind of raise your anxiety and make you stressed out. And so, but then when they present themselves, they try to present themselves like they're your friend. They're going to work with you. So there's always this, like within the Lucky Devils, we have the devils are lying to the people, and the people are lying to themselves about what they're like, that they're being altruistic and that they're doing this just for the benefit of the world, but then the devils are also behind the scenes are lying to each other about what their intentions are and their plans. And so it's a fun there's a lot of fun variety in this, with like the acting, getting to do the acting of the devils and the acting of the people. And I don't know again, I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. Any answer you give is an answer. There's no right or wrong answers in any of my conversations. It's just a conversation. This is just an excuse for me to chat with you two, really. And it just so happens I have an audience who are willing to check out your stuff. Otherwise this would just be, hey guys, come on, chat. Well, that's amazing. I know that we are at the time, so I won't ask you any more questions, but I'll just say, once I've stopped recording, there's a quick thing I want to ask off air. But last sort of things, really, floor is both of yours for final statements, where people can find you, and really anything else you want to say about Lucky Devils. Ryan, as you had the floor, you can go first.
Okay. Well, Lucky Devils #1 comes out in January 8th. It's going to be 9 issues, and then eventually be collected in some sort of hardcover thing. But the way the comics work, supporting the book while it's going on is how you keep Charles and I, can focus all of our energy on making it. And so like following along is always incredibly important to our creative endeavor. And we really, appreciate it with 8 Billion Genies, and we hope you join us on the Lucky Devils. It's not the same thing as 8 Billion Genies, but if you like that, you're going to like this new journey. Yeah, that's what I got.
Amazing.
And where can you be found, Ryan?
I don't know, in my house.
Near pinball machines. That's it. You find a pinball machine in Michigan, he's probably there.
I'm Ryan Browne. Brown has an E on the end, and usually my handle is Ryan Browne Art, ART, on Twitter, and you can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram and all that jazz.
All the links will be in the description. My show notes, a lot of people tell me, are the best show notes in podcasting. No one's ever said my show's the best in podcasting, but the show notes at least.
Show notes.
Yeah,
Wow.
got something. So you, Charles.
I can also be found online at the usual places. Most of them, I'm Charles Soule, my first and last name. On Instagram, I'm Charles D. Soule. And in terms of the Lucky Devils, look, we will find out later today how the first issue did, what kind of support the retailers wanted to put behind us. We are very hopeful that they wanted to, as Ryan said, go on the journey with us. But really, this is about readers checking the book out and then continuing to get it month after month as we put the issues on the stand. And hopefully the story that we're telling is going to be something that inspires people to want to do that, because it's a commitment to go to the comic shop every month, to tell them you want it, to make sure you get it. But we know that, and we are putting everything we have as creators into the book to make sure that commitment on the reader's end is reflected in the story that you're getting. So this one's really fun, really cool. And I don't know, we've been in this pre the book coming out moment for what feels like forever. And now that we're basically at the moment when the book is going to be out and people will be reading it, like, I don't know, I cannot wait. I'm very ready for this project to leave the station and have its adventures and see where it takes us. If it takes us to even half the places 8 Billion Genies did, we are in for a hell of a year.
Yeah, I mean, the first issue was fantastic, but I'm always excited about the second issue of a run, because the first issue establishes, but the second issue I find is normally where it really kicks off. At least that's what I found with 8 Billion and a lot of other indie comics. But yes, echoing the points of my two amazing guests, support independent creators. Obviously, Charles has done a lot of work with the big two and Star Wars and all that jazz, and that's fine, support where you can. But I would always say to my listeners, support independent authors and comic books and things like that much more than you can where possible. Supporting one issue of 8 Billion Genies or Lucky Devil or something really, I think, has a lot more weight to it than, say, an issue of Star Wars or something. If Disney's listening, I'm sorry. But support independent creators, pick up these guys' stuff. I'll put all the links in the description. But thank you both. You've been very generous with your time, and I hugely appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
Thank you so much.